and special decisions. The reason is the cost of materials. If you have them in stock, they are sunk cost. If you don't have them in stock, then that means you are going to acquire them, right? So how much you're going to pay for them, that is the relevant cost of materials. Now, if you have them in stock and they would be replaced, then that means once you use them up, then you are going to buy them again. So the relevant cost of materials is still just its replacement value, which is also called the purchase price. However, if the materials are to be replaced, then the additional acquisition cost or future replacement cost of materials used on particular alternative represent the relevant cost of the materials. This is just what I said, that if you are going to replace them, then how much it's going to cost you to replace those materials, that should be the relevant cost. Now, if you have existing inventory of materials, the original price, the purchase price of those materials that you have in stock right now, those ones are historical cost or sunk cost. So they are not relevant for this decision. Now, the only difference, the only way they can be relevant is in two ways. Either when they have a current resale value, if they can be resold, or they have another alternative use. So you have materials in stock. If you can resell them, if you know how much you can resell them, or you can sell them for again, or you can use them for something else, then you can give them a relevant cost. You can put a value on them, because if you are not going to resell them and you are not going to use them for anything, then that means their value is just that value that you have already incurred, which is now a sunk cost. So if you have materials in stock, right? And you are not going to sell them, that means you are not expecting to get any money from them, okay? And you are also not going you are not expecting to use them for anything else, then their relevant cost is zero. But if you are expecting to sell those materials, then the relevant cost is the value of how much you're going to sell them for. Now, you can have two options of, you can resell this material that you have in stock, or you could use them to produce this other product. Then you will have to take that alternative value. Now, that is when you can use them for something else. That is called an alternative value, or that resale value, whichever one is higher. So let me go to the Word document, because I think it actually explains this better than the slides. Okay, so as the definition of the relevant cost is the future incremental cash flow, it follows that the relevant cost of direct materials is not the historical or sunk cost, which is now the how much it costs you to buy them now that they're in stock, right? But the replacement price of those materials, how much it will cost you to replace them. Therefore, it is irrelevant whether or not those materials are held in inventory unless such materials have only scrap value or an alternative use, in which case the relevant cost is the opportunity cost of the foregone alternative. Now, the cost of using materials can be summarized as follows. If the materials is purchased specifically for that project that or for that decision, then the relevant cost is the purchase price. Okay, if you are purchasing the material specifically for that decision, then the relevant cost is the purchase price of the materials. The second bullet is, if the material is already in stock and is used regularly, then the relevant cost is still the purchase price. The reasoning behind this is the fact that if it's in stock and it's used regularly, then that means whenever you use them for that decision, you are going to replace them anyways. So the relevant cost of the materials that are used on a regular basis is the purchase price, how much you can pay for them right now in the market, okay? The third bullet says, if the material is already in stock, but it's a surplus, which means they were bought for something else and you don't have any other use for them, it's as a result of a previous overbuying, then the relevant cost is the opportunity cost, which may be its scrap value, how much you can sell them for right now, or its value in any alternative use. If you can use it to produce something else, then you put a value on that. Now the opportunity cost, because what you are now saying is, if you use them for this special order, then you cannot sell them anymore, right? So that how much you were going to get if you sold that material, that's an opportunity cost. Or how much you were going to, the value of what you were going to, not what you were going to produce, but say the value of the alternative use, how much you are placing on those materials for that use that you are going to use them for, then that's the value of the alternative use. There's an example below that deals with this very well. Okay, so before I ask you if you have a question, I want us to do this summary. If you downloaded these notes, because I uploaded them there on Monday or Tuesday. No, today is Tuesday, right? Yeah, I uploaded them there yesterday. You need to re-download them because I just added this today. I think it explains it better. It's actually even better. You can keep referring to this. So you have the first question. Are the materials already in stock or incorporated to buy in a purchase agreement, or do you have or contracted to be bought in a purchase agreement? Do you have a contract for them already, or are they already in stock? If you don't have them in stock, then you use the purchase price as the relevant cost. Okay? If you have them in stock, then you go to the next question. If you have them in stock, then the next question should be, are the materials regularly used and replaced with fresh supplies when stock runs out? If you replace them regularly, then the relevant cost should still be the cost price. Now, if you don't replace them regularly, then you go to the next question. Do the materials have an alternative use, or would they be scrapped if not used? Scrapped means resold, right? If you are going to resell them, then the relevant cost should be the scrap value. If they are going to be used for something else, then the relevant cost should be the value of that alternative use. Now, you may have a situation where the material has both the scrap value, it has a price on what you can sell it for, and it also has another alternative value. If you don't sell it for, or if you don't use it in this special decision, you could use it to produce this product, right? Or you could use it in place of this other material. Now that is the alternative value. So whichever one is higher between the scrap value or the resale value and the alternative use, whichever value is higher, if you have both of them, you choose the highest one. That is the relevant cost of that material. Are you okay? Who's confused? Are you good?
I am.
Where are you confused?
I'm not.
Okay, who's confused?
Can you just scroll a bit up?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, the third bullet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can just go through again.
Okay. So the third bullet is just this point here. This one here. So don't look at the diagram. Think about this. The question is, do you have the materials in stock? Yes. Okay, so if you have them in stock, do you replace them on a regular basis? No. So if you don't replace them on a regular basis, that means you don't usually use them every day. You probably just purchase them and you bought more of them. So if you don't use them on a regular basis, you have two options. Can you resell the materials? Yes, I can resell the materials. Can you use the materials for something else? That means The alternative use is to make sure that it's just to say that the company has another value on this material, because if you don't have an alternative use for the material, remember you just purchased these materials as you just overbought these materials. So that means you already don't care about them that much unless you have an alternative use. So if you have an alternative use, that means the company values this material because they can use them for something else. So if they can use them for something else and they can resell them, so you take the value that is higher. So that means if I can use them to produce product A and I put the value of that raw material when I use it for product A as $12, or I could either use it to produce product A or I could resell it. Now, how much can I resell it for? For $10. Now, that means you have two options. So you choose the highest one, okay? So that is just to say, if you are given a question, ask yourself this. These materials they are talking about, are they already in stock? If they are already in stock, then you ask yourself the next question. Are they used regularly? The question will tell you this, okay? If they are used on a regular basis, then you use the purchase price. If they are not, then you check for, can they be resold? If they can be resold, then that there's an opportunity cost there. But you need to check for the alternative use, because if they can be resold and there is also an alternative use, then you have to choose the higher of those two. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So then if it makes sense, let's go to the example, because I think the example will make it clearer. So Laidhama Putra, I think this is an Indian company, it has a long name that makes no sense, has been approached by a customer who wants to place a special order and is willing to pay 16,000. So you have a customer who wants to pay you 16,000 for this special order. Now, the order requires the materials shown below. So for you to produce this order, you need to use materials A, B, C, and D, right? So this table has the details of the materials that you need. So you have one column has the total kgs that you require for the order. And then you have the second column with the kgs that you have in stock right now, okay? And then you have the next column of the original price. Now, what do we call this? When it comes to relevant costing, what do we call this? The original price, how much you bought the materials for in the first place.
That will be sunk cost?
Yes, it's a sunk cost, so it's irrelevant. If you have it in stock, then it doesn't matter. You don't care about this one because it's irrelevant. You already have the materials, okay? And then you have the scrap value per kg. This is how much you can sell the materials for. And then the next column and the last one, this one has the current purchase price, how much you can buy the materials in the market today, right? So you have notes that say that material A would have to be purchased specifically for this order. So for you to use material A, you need to purchase it. So which value should we use to calculate the cost of material A? Are we using the scrap value? Are we using the alternative value? Are we using the purchase price?
The current purchase price, because we do not have it in stock.
Yes, then we use the current purchase price, right? And then for B, the question says that it's used regularly, and any inventory used for this order would have to be replaced. So which value are we going to use for this one? Guys, scrap value, purchase price, or alternative use value?
I'll go with the alternative purchase value because we're going to
Okay.
have to replace it at that value.
We are going to have
No.
to.
Replace it at that value since
Okay.
it's used regularly.
Okay, so let's go back to the diagram. So is the material already in stock? A is not in stock, so that's a given. We have to use the purchase price, right? What's the next one? B. B is in stock, so yes, it is in stock. So if B is in stock, there's the next question. Are the materials used regularly and replaced with fresh supplies when stock runs out? B specifically say that yes, it has to be replaced, right? So then we go to the next one. The relevant cost is the purchase price. Does that make sense? We need to use the purchase price for the relevant to calculate the cost of B. The reason why is because we need to replace it. So if you use it, you know, you have 600 in stock right now, and then you need 1,000. If you use this 600 in stock, you still need to buy, because once you use them up, you have to replace them because they are used regularly. Does that make sense? So you need to use the purchase price because you are going to buy them from the market, right? Does it make sense?
Right.
Okay. So material
Ma'am,
C.
can you just scroll?
Sorry, ma'am.
May you just scroll up a bit?
Okay. Tell me to stop.
Okay, you may stop.
Okay.
So basically, the price we are going to use for material B is the. Oh, sorry, I said you may stop. So the price that we are going to use for material B is the current purchase price.
Yes.
The last. Okay.
So we are going to use the current purchase price. So for C, material C is surplus to requirements and has no alternative value. So it's a surplus. We purchased it previously as a surplus and we don't need it anymore, right? So we purchased it previously, we used it, and then it's leftovers from a previous purchase, right? So it has no alternative value. So then which value are we going to use to calculate the relevant cost for this material C?
The scrap value.
Yes, we are going to use the scrap value because it doesn't have an alternative use. It's already in stock and it has the scrap value, so it can be resold. So then the opportunity of the relevant cost of this material is going to be the opportunity cost, because if we use it for this order, then we won't be able to sell it, right? So then you use the scrap value as the cost of this material. So for D, yeah.
Before you proceed, you said that because we're not going to sell material C, we're not scraping it off.
We are not doing what?
We are not scraping off material C. We will use it. Why are we not using it at the original price, but at the scraping price instead?
The original price, we just determined that it's a sunk cost. It doesn't matter anymore because relevant costs have to be in the future. You already purchased it, it's already in stock, so it doesn't even matter anymore how much it costs you. Does that make sense?
I hear you, but then can you scroll up to that diagram again? Let me see what it says about this point.
Okay.
So where are we now with C?
Okay, so do we have it in stock?
Okay,
Yes.
it's here. Scrap area.
We have it in stock. Do we use it frequently? Guys,
No.
do we use C frequently? No, we don't.
No.
So then we move on to the next question. Do the materials have an alternative use? Does it have an alternative use? It doesn't.
No.
Or would they be scraped if not used? Does it have a scrap value?
Yes.
It has a scrap value. So that means if it has a scrap value, but it doesn't have an alternative use, then you use the scrap value. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but just as a what do I say, guideline, whenever you are dealing with materials that are already in stock, it doesn't matter if they give you the price they purchased it for. It's in the past. We don't consider it for decision making. Now, we are not saying relevant cost doesn't mean that this how much you bought these materials for, it doesn't matter business wise. Okay, in the books, in your financial statements, that's probably the value that's in there. Now, that depends also on the standard of inventory, how you value inventory and so forth. But what we are saying is, to make a decision, the cost of how much it costs you to buy the materials that are already in your stock, it's irrelevant to this decision that we are trying to make, because we already have the materials. Whether we sold we went ahead with this special order or not, we still would have product C in our stock. The only thing that matters is the fact that if we use it for this special order, then we won't have to sell it. So that's why that opportunity cost of the scrap value, that's why that's what we are using as to determine the cost of the material. Okay. Now, D, the question says that material D is also surplus to requirements, but can be used as a substitute for material E. So D and C are the same, but the difference is D has an alternative use. C does not have an alternative use, but D does. Now, there is more information that relates to D. Now, the material E that D substitutes for, although it's not required for this order, is in regular use and currently costs $8 per kg, but is not in stock right now. So the point is, if the company wants to produce something that requires product E and they don't have product E, they go ahead and use product D, right? So that means the value of alternative use in this case is $8 because it costs you $8 to buy product E, right? So if it costs you $8 to buy product E, then that means the value of the alternative use. What's the alternative use? You can use D as E, and E costs you $8. So that alternative use is $8. So how much are we going to use to value the cost of product D?
It will be $8 as well, ma'am.
Why $8?
Because D became the material D, material E. That's why it became an alternative use. So D will be revalued as the same price as E, which will be $8 per kg.
Why not the scrap value?
We use the higher value of the two.
Yes. So if you have the scrap value and the value of alternative use, if you have the both of them, then you use the higher one. Okay? Because look at C. C only had the scrap value. It didn't have the alternative value. So you go ahead and use the scrap value. If D only had the alternative value and it didn't have the scrap value, then you should go ahead and use the alternative value. But in this case, D has the scrap value of six pounds and another value, which is the alternative value of 8 pounds. So you need to use the higher of those two amounts. In this case, you use the $8. Okay, you are correct. I just need you to know that if the scrap value was higher, you would use the scrap value instead of the alternative value. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you go on to calculate the total cost, okay? So for A, we need 750 units. That's in the question in the first column, I think, or the second one. The second one, total units required, we need 750. We don't have anything in stock, so you take 750 multiplied by the purchase price, that's 6, okay? And then you get your answer. For B, you calculate 1,000 multiplied by 5. Now, take note of the fact that you have 600 here in stock for B, for material B, right? The reason why you are buying the whole 1,000 is because you must replace whatever you use. So if you bought, you used 600, you have to replace all of them because they are used, they are replaced as they are used, right? So you have to buy the whole 1,000, okay? And then you multiply it by the purchase price. And if you go for C, we need 500 units for C. The kgs required, we require 500, we have 400 in stock. So we said we are going to use the scrap value for C, right? So then you take the 2.5 multiplied by the 400. The scrap value is only going to be used for the items that are in stock because those are the only ones that you can resell, right? So you take the 2.5 multiplied by 400, and we still have to buy the 100, which is because we need 500, we only have 400 in stock. So the 100, you are going to multiply it by the purchase price. So you take 400 multiplied by the 2.5, that's the scrap value of product C or material C. And then the remaining 100, you must use the replacement price or the purchase price to purchase them because you are going to buy them from the market because in stock you only have 400. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, and then you move on to D. We have 500 kgs in stock for D. We only need 300. And then we said we are going to use $8 for D, right? So then you take 300 multiplied by the $8, and then you get your value for product D. Okay, so after you've gotten your value for each material, you have to add them together because remember, the whole purpose of all this, you are trying to make a decision if we should accept the special order that we are going to get 16,000 from it, right? So if you are given this cost, then you need to compare this cost to the price that you are going to, or the value that you are going to get from it. So then you will take the total cost. Now in this case, it's 13,300 minus the 16,000. 16,000 is from this price that you are given here, up here. The customer is willing to pay you 16,000 for this special order. So you deduct 13,300. That is your total cost of materials from this 16,000. And that gives you an incremental gain. That means you are making money from this order, right? So based on this, you will now advise the company to say you should accept the order. If it was less, if the cost of materials were more than the price, or how much you would get from the special order is less than how much it will cost you, then you would advise the company to decline the order. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any questions on what we just did? Calculations of materials and so forth? Okay. So these are just an explanation of what we just did to say the reason why we use the purchase price for material A, which I think what I can advise you, always use this diagram. If you are in loss or if you are lost on what to use, ask yourself these questions. Is the material in stock? If no, then use the purchase price. If yes, then you ask, do I use it on a regular basis? And does it need to be replaced every time I use it? Yes, then use the purchase price. If no, then that's when you have to decide between using the scrap value and the alternative use. If you are not given the both of them, then you use whatever you are given. If you are given the both of them, now that is the scrap value and the value of alternative use, then you use whichever one is higher. Okay? It's easy, right? Okay. How far can we go? What time does class end? Do we go till 8?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, okay. So do you have any questions? before we continue? Okay. So if you don't have questions, we are done with materials, right? So now we are going to talk about labor. So if you are dealing with a question that has labor in it, then you need to use this summary to consider the material or the relevant costing when it comes to when it comes to labor. So the first question that you need to ask yourself is there surplus capacity available? If there is surplus capacity available, then the relevant cost of labor would be the variable cost of the labor that would be used. Now, relevant surplus capacity means the employees that you have right now or the labor that you are using right now, they have some slack in there. They have time. They are not busy all the time. That means you can use you can increase their hours without it costing you anything, okay? That means if you are given a question and the question tells you that the company has surplus capacity when it comes to labor, then the relevant cost of labor is just the variable cost, because remember, for everything that you produce, variable cost also increases. So the variable cost of labor will increase with every product that you produce, right? So that's a relevant cost. Now, if there is no surplus capacity available, then you have to ask yourself the next question. If there is no surplus capacity, then you have to ask if it's possible to employ more workers. Can you employ more workers? That means, does the company have money to spend on more people? So if the company has money, can you see? Okay. Is it possible to employ more workers? If it's yes, if it's possible to employ more workers, then the relevant cost of labor would therefore be the total cost of employing the new workers or the total cost of overtime. Because if you have money to employ more people, that means you can either go to the market and get more people, or you can use the people that you have now and pay them overtime. So that means the relevant cost of labor would be the total cost of employing those new people that you are employing to use them in your special order, or the overtime that you are using for that special order. Okay, so that is your relevant cost of labor if you have money to employ more people or to pay your employees overtime. Now, if you don't have money to pay overtime or to employ more people, then the relevant cost would be the variable cost of the labor that would be used plus the lost contribution from the displaced production. So that means, so you do not have surplus capacity, you cannot afford to pay more people, or you cannot afford to pay your current employees overtime. That means if you are going to go ahead with this special order, you will need to reduce your current production, because if you are going to take people from your normal production, because you don't have additional capacity, right? That means your normal production is going to go down. So if it's going to go down, then your relevant cost in this case would be your variable cost, because for every product that you produce, the labor cost, the variable labor cost is always relevant, plus that lost contribution that you are going to, that you will lose if you use these current employees for this special order. Does that make sense?
Hello, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, hi, ma'am. I have a question. Like,
Okay.
let's say you have the surplus capacity, but then they are unqualified for the decision that has to be taken. What happens?
Give me a specific. Can you try to make it specific?
Let's say they were more focused on one project, but then like they lack the proper knowledge for the other.
Oh, so you are trying to produce this special order, but then you need special skills.
Kind of, yeah.
Then you will have to spend money on the specialized people. So that if you are given that in the question, then the question would have to say the company has capacity, surplus capacity. However, the employees that we have are not capable of producing this order. So they will probably give you two options of, now this is just me thinking of the bed, right? They will probably give you an option of either training the current ones that you have, or outsourcing, like bringing in your specialists that are just here for this special order and going. So then you will have to weigh those options as well to say which one you should go with. Does that make sense?
Ma'am, can I just interject?
Yeah.
When you're talking about surface capacity, the word capacity on its own denotes that those persons are able to carry out that task at that relevant cost center. So if it says there's a labor force available but not of adequate capacity, then that is when you talk about getting relevant qualified persons. But the very first moment the wording is saying surplus capacity, it means those people are qualified for that job, because
Yes.
it says to have the capacity, you need to have the qualification, basically the same thing, the same meaning.
Yes. So this is based on that to say, if we are saying there's a surplus capacity, those people that are there with the surplus capacity are able to carry out the work. Now that me saying training the current employees or employing special people, I was answering his question when he said, what if now the special the capacity is there, but the people are not qualified? Does that make sense? So if you are told that there is a surplus capacity, that just goes to say that there is people that are there, because when you are dealing with special orders, right, it's usually the things that you are already producing or something in the same line that is slightly related, or maybe just customized for the customer that you are producing it for. Unless you want a different product, now that's when the specialized people will come in. If you are saying now the people that are there are not skilled, which is not a bad thing to say, because this is the real world, and even in an exam question I actually can see it happening. Like, yeah. So if you are being told that there's surplus capacity, that really just says that the employees that are there can be used unless you are told otherwise, okay? So just let the question guide you. And in real life, then you have to gauge the employees that you have. Can they use their skills to produce this special order, or are you going to need the special people, in which case the relevant cost of that order is that specialized skills, the cost of the specialized skills that you are going to employ. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, so that was a good question, actually. Okay, so where were we? Is it possible to employ? Okay, so we finished with labor. Okay, so next time, because we only have 4 minutes, we are going to start with overheads. Well, that's next week. Okay, next week, Monday, we are going to start with overheads, and then I think we'll do an example. I think by tomorrow I should upload the next slides, because this is part 1 of relevant costing. There is part 2 that now has the specified specialized decisions like make or buy. And I think one of these decisions you actually already covered in cost 201, which is, if you remember, in joint costing, we had this thing of should you sell the joint product as is, or should you process it further? I think that there were some few questions on there. We didn't really dive deep into it, but that's a relevant costing question as well. So we are going to deal with that as well, which is not even It's not that there's not much difference from what we cover. I don't think there's a difference. The whole thing is the same. The phenomena is the same of what we covered last semester for that specific specialized decision. So I'm going to upload the notes. I think I'm done with them. I just need to go through them to see how they look, and then I can upload them with you guys so you can go through them over the weekend. Okay? Any questions? Okay, so if there are no more questions, then thank you guys for an engaged class. I'll see you next week.